we will be discussing about the following topics. First, let us know more about vinegar, the different types of vinegar, the methods of manufacture, Philippine standards for vinegar, vinegar processing using the traditional processing procedure, and using the accelerated method of producing vinegar, which is the acetator. And also, we will be showing you the accelerated vinegar production capital investment and business opportunity plan. Next, please. Lahat naman po tayo ay familiar sa suka. So, kasi madalas po natin itong ginagamit sa pagluluto or sa pagkain. So, today, mas kikilalanin pa po natin ang suka. So, ang salitang vinegar ay galing po sa two French words na vin and agar, na ang ibig sabihin po nito ay sour wine. So, ginagamit po itong condiments sa pag-prepare po ng ating pagkain or simpleng sausawan po sa mga paborito nating pagkain. We can easily find these products sa mga supermarkets or any stores of different types. These vinegars could be white, cloudy, or ibang color like yellow, black, or red. Ang suka po or vinegar ay ang liquid na napoproduce by means of alcoholic and acetic acid fermentation na galing sa crops na rich in starch or carbohydrates. So, kailangan po natin ng matamis na bagay para makagawa po tayo ng suka. Ang production po at distribution ng vinegar sa Pilipinas ay regulated po ng ating Food and Drug Administration. Meron po tayong Administrative Order 134 wherein nakapaloob po doon ang quality standards at identity po ng vinegar natin. So mamaya po ipapakita ko po sa inyo kung ano po yung coverage po ng administrative order natin for vinegar. So but the most important po ay masunod po ang standards in terms of acidity and that it should not be less than 4% except for nipas of vinegar na 3%. Next please. Marami pong uses ang vinegar. Some of the applications of vinegar are in culinary, medicinal, cleaning, and agricultural and horticultural uses. In general, madalas po na gamit ng suka ay pag-prepare po natin ng pagkain. Pagkain po sa bahay, sa mga food services like yung mga restaurants and catering services. And also, ginagamit din po ito pag nagpo-proseso po tayo ng pagkain. So, ang suka po ay kino-consider natin na effective natural preservative. Bakit po? Because of the acetic acid content nito and dahil mababa po ang pH nito. Yung acetic acid po na present in vinegar can kill microbes and inhibits food spoilage. So adding common vinegar in your food can not only preserve foods but also help enhance their taste. So madalas po natin itong ginagamit as condiments or seasonings, as flavorings, or in doing pickled products. So, and then another application po ng vinegar is as medicine. Ginagamit po ito as an old-time home remedy or as an antiseptic. Marami na rin po studies na nag-report regarding the beneficial effects of vinegar. And some of the observed health and medical benefits from vinegars are as follows. So nakakatulong po ito sa pag-control po ng blood glucose and sa pag-manage po ng ating diabetes because of its anti-glycemic effect. Nakakatulong din po ito sa pag-control po natin ng diet. So vinegar increases satiety or the feeling of fullness. And then lastly, vinegar can help us fight against infections because of the antimicrobial or antibacterial properties po nito. Another application is for cleaning purposes. So ginagamit ito as household cleaning agent. And because acidic po ito, kaya niyang mag-dissolve, kaya niya pong ma-dissolve yung mga minerals na nakadeposit sa mga glasses or any smooth surfaces. So, ginagamit din po ang vinegar for agricultural and horticultural management. So, ginagamit po siyang herbicide which is considered as organic since from natural sources naman po ang pag-produce ng suka. Next slide, please. So, moving on, there are different types of vinegar. Next slide. So, there are several types of vinegar produced around the world. So, bawat isa po ay may kanya-kanyang characteristics in terms of flavor na unique. Nakadepende po ito sa raw material and process po na ginagamit. So ito po yung unique characteristics na ito ay nakadepende din po sa location, sa klima, at kultura na meron po tayo. So in the market, these are types of vinegar that we have depending on the sources and kinds. First, we have vinegars from grains such as sake leaves, so from malt, from unpolished or not unpolished rice and rice. And then next, we have vinegar from fruits. These types of vinegars, hindi na po kailangan ng additional flavoring because yung flavors na inherent po sa mismong fruit stays or remains in the final product. Some of the fruits that are processed into vinegars are apple, grapes, coconut water, pineapple, sugar canes, mango, banana, and many more. We also have vinegars from spirits or distilled. Ito po yung mga vinegars na napoproduce po from acetous fermentation of industrial alcohol or by distillation po ng vinegar. So nag-undergo po ito ng distillation process. And then lastly, meron po tayong synthetic vinegars. Ito pong alcohol ay gawa sa pinaghalong diluted solutions of non-food grade acetic acid with water and cloudifier which is deemed to be adulterated and not safe. Next slide, please. Dito po sa Pilipinas, yung availability and type of raw material play an important role sa paggawa po ng vinegar. We are blessed po because we have a variety of agricultural products in our country. Meron po tayong traditional vinegars. These vinegars are produced from materials that are abundant to a specific area. So kung ano po yung raw material po na sagana po sa lugar natin, yun po yung ginagamit natin. For example, in Northern Luzon, we have vinegars that are made from sugarcane or tinatawag po natin itong sukang Ilocos. Sa Central Luzon naman po, meron silang nipa, tinatawag naman po itong sukang paumbong. Or sa Southern Luzon, Bicol and Mindanao, gumagamit din sila ng coconut sap or sukang tuba, and nipa sap, sukang sasa or sukang nipa. Ganon din po sa Mindanao, coconut sap and nipa sap din po ang kanilang ginagamit. So, other sources of vinegar that have been tried at a small scale include fruit juices from pineapple, tomato and cashew, and starchy materials like rice, corn, and cassava. Next slide, please. Okay po. Now that we have a bit of background po on vinegar, ngayon naman po pag-aaralan po natin kung paano po ba ito ginagawa or pinoproseso. Next slide po. Meron po tayong tatlong methods ng pag-produce po ng vinegar. And ito po yung traditional, improved traditional process, and also involves commercial production. Next slide po. Sa traditional method, tinatawag po itong let alone process. So bakit po? By the name itself, hinahayaan lang po natin ito mag-ferment on its own. So meron po tayong substrate. Ito po yung fermented sugar natin. Nakalagay po siya usually sa ceramic jars, bottles, or plastic containers. Then, hinahayaan lang po natin ito mag-proceed sa fermentation from sugar to alcohol. So in some cases po, naglalagay po sila ng yeast para mapabilis po. Then continue lang po yung conversion ng alcohol to vinegar basta nasa safe at malamig po na lugar ito. So ito po ay matagal na proseso. Sometimes it would take 1 month to 1 year to complete the process kasi nakadepende lang po ito sa initial load po ng microorganisms, ng acidity and exposure po sa air and ambient conditions. So with this method po, the quality is not uniform. Hit and miss po ang procedure na ito. And generally, this method has a relatively short shelf life. So mababa po ang shelf life or itinatagal ito. So usually mga less than 6 months po. Kaya mahirap din po ito makapag-compete sa market kasi ang requirements natin ay as follows. Yung FDA regulations, at least 4% ang titratable acidity niya. But most of the traditional vinegar, 3% lang po yung nakukuhang titratable acidity po nito. So dahil po doon, hindi po natin maaaring i-produce ito into commercial scale, and it also becomes an exotic regional or provincial product po natin. Next slide, please. So vinegar production takes about 4 to 15 weeks to complete and to obtain 4 to 5% acetic acid. So ang process po, it involves yeast fermentation of coconut water to produce an alcoholic solution. So second, it is then further fermented into vinegar by means of the so-called acetic acid bacteria. So the process is carried out simply by exposing to the air the partially fermented coconut water with the starter containing the acetic acid bacteria. Next slide po. Next, we have the improved traditional process. So yung traditional process po, kasi na-discuss po natin kanina, ay uncontrolled. So meaning hindi po consistent ang quality in terms of the sensory characteristics, and hindi rin po consistent yung acidity ng suka na napoproduce po natin. So dahil po doon, nag-recommend po yung mga eksperto po natin sa science community ng simple technical procedure para makagawa ng standardized vinegar. So ito pong method na ito ay improvement po ng traditional process. And these are the following. So first, yung material or substrate po natin for fermentation is checked for its total soluble solids. So ito po yung sinusukat po natin, yung tamis ng substrate po natin ng isang bagay. And then next, yung total soluble solids po ay ina-adjust po natin to 12 to 15% by addition of sugar or other source. So next, this liquor is pasteurized. So iniinit po natin ito para ma-eliminate yung mga unwanted microorganisms. And then cooled, and a fresh batch of yeast is added. And then lastly, mother vinegar is added to this liquor from a previously prepared batch. So in terms of product quality, repeatability, and rate or bilis po ng fermentation, this process is much better than the let alone process or the traditional process. Next slide po. The last method of manufacture is by commercial production. So dito po sa Pilipinas, yung mga manufacturers or producers po ng suka ay nakaklasify po into 3 main categories. So namely, first, those that produce vinegar by traditional method. So para mapabilis ang fermentation rate and makapag-produce po ng magandang quality ng suka, yung traditional na process, ginagamitan din ng mga modifications sa kanilang mga processes. And then next, those who buy fermented acetic acid and produce their own vinegar by mixing procedures. And those that only produce fermented acetic acid using the large-scale fermenters, utilizing the distilled alcohol and distribute it to vinegar manufacturers. Sa commercial scale level, para po ma-ensure po ang large production po ng vinegar, so gumagamit po sila ng fringe type acetators or also called acetator cavitator. So dito po mag-invest ka po talaga sa equipment. And then actually, meron pong fourth group, ito yung mga manufacturers na nagproproduce po ng suka na pinaghahalo yung mga non-food grade acetic acid, water, and cloudifier, which is very hazardous practice. So itong practice na ito ay kalat po sa mga small scale operations dahil unang-una hindi ito nagre-require ng mamahaling equipment. Hindi mo rin po kailangan ng high level of technical knowledge and mas malaki ang kita compared sa fermentation process. Next slide po. So when it comes to commercial production, nasa-satisfy naman po ang mga regulations set by the FDA. So the use of 10% fermented acetic acid diluting to 4% titratable acidity. And as mentioned, they use large-scale and expensive equipment, which is not practical po for our local manufacturers of vinegar. Next slide po. Gaya po ng na-discuss natin kanina, there are some illegal preparations involved in commercial production. Gaya ng paggamit po ng concentrated acetic acid, like synthetic materials and non-food grade materials. Next slide po. So, okay, let's now move on to the Philippine standards for vinegar. So, the commercial production and distribution of vinegar in the Philippines is regulated by the FDA, DOH, Department of Health. So, kailangan makontrol po and ma-maintain po ang standards and quality ng vinegar na pinoproduce po natin dito sa Pilipinas. So, nagkaroon po tayo ng law under DOH Administrative Order Number 134, Series of 1970. Although as of now, pinag-aaralan po ang standards for vinegar dahil po sa revelation ng Philippine Nuclear Research Institute that most commercial vinegar brands use synthetic acetic acid, which is harmful to the body. So the Food and Drug Administration is currently working on this and will update the country's vinegar standards. Next slide po. Ito po yung coverage ng PNS po natin based on DOH AO 134 for vinegar. So dito po makikita nyo nakadefine po ang meaning ng vinegar and distilled vinegar. So pwede rin po ang mga optional ingredients like ng caramel as coloring in any vinegar variety without label declaration. Another is flavoring na applicable as any vinegar variety pero dapat applicable po siya sa any vinegar variety pero dapat nakadeclare yung nature niya sa label. Then we have the quality standards for vinegar. For the acidity, we need to have a minimum of 4% as acetic acid and except for the NIPA, now 3% weight by weight. And then total solids of 1.5% and 2.2%. Then may maximum limit lang po in case po na present po ang ash and other heavy metals like lead, copper, arsenic as shown in the table. Then according po sa PNS, dapat ang vinegar natin ay walang presence ng synthetic acetic acid and cloudifying agent. Next slide po. So before we proceed with the vinegar processing steps, gusto ko lang po ipakita yung basics po ng vinegar production. As you can see in this slide, sa paggawa ng natural na suka from materials containing sugar, meron po tayong dalawang stage ng fermentation process. And then para po sa flow, ang matamis na bagay, pag nilagyan po natin ng yeast, makakapag-produce tayo ng alcoholic solution. Then gagamitan po ng bacteria which is the acetobacter or acetic acid bacteria para ma-convert yung alcohol into vinegar or acetic acid given the sufficient oxygen. So yun lang po yung basic natin for vinegar processing.